Which is the best 360 action camera? In this video, I'll put the top 3 contenders in early 2020 side by side. The Insta360 One R, One X, and GoPro Max to see which one performs best in a variety of shooting situations. I'll start by saying no matter which one of these you choose, you're going to get a good camera. However, one of them stands head and shoulders above the others. You'll find out which one that is by the end of the video. Now let's start with the camera designs, and with the One R, it's waterproof without needing a housing. You can put it straight in the water and it's going to be fine. It's USB-C, it has an expandable and changeable battery. Right now it lasts an hour, but they've got an expanded battery coming soon, which should hypothetically last twice as long. It has a reversible touchscreen, it has a low profile, meaning it's much wider than it is tall, making it more aerodynamic. Let's admit it looks exactly like a GoPro. The One R has lens protectors, it's external mic compatible, and it doubles as a 5.3K action camera with a 1-inch mod if you only want to shoot in one direction. The main cons are it takes time to assemble because it is a modular camera. Also, the body is thick, meaning stitching won't always be perfect. The GoPro Max is also waterproof without needing a housing. It's USB-C. It has a good battery life because it's got a pretty big removable battery. It also has a touchscreen, a bigger and better one than the One R, as well as spatial audio, which the One R doesn't have. It does come with lens protectors. They're not great, but they're something. Then the main con I see of the Max is also having a thick body, meaning stitching won't always be good at close distance. The main pros I see with the One X are it's thin and light. The design is more vertical and horizontal, meaning it's easier to handhold than the other two cameras. The first con is the screen brightness. When you're in bright daylight, it's not always easy to see that screen. Also, it's a micro USB, whereas the other two are USB-C. Also, it's fragile and has been known to break in extreme circumstances. The One R and One X shoot 5.7K 360 video. The Max shoots 5.6K. Also, on a side note, I'm not including the Candow QCam 8K in this video because 8K video is still pretty hard to edit for most people in early 2020. It's still a great camera and I'll be releasing in-depth videos about it on my channel in the coming weeks. Now, before my hands turned to ice, it was like minus 20 when I made this comparison. Let's shoot. This first shot was taken with the cameras held out of a car window, and the first thing I'm noticing here is the One X and One R look identical, whereas the Max looks a bit different. This is something I noticed when Insta360 released the Evo. It's like they used the exact same internal bits of the camera, just in a new 360 camera design, meaning the footage looked identical from camera to camera. Well, I'm seeing it again here. The One X and One R look really similar, and I honestly can't pick them apart aside from a small change in white balance. What I'm noticing with the Max is it's much higher contrast straight out of the camera. Also, the colors are slightly more saturated. I've also noticed a consistent roll of the horizon with the GoPro Max once you pass the 20-second or so recording mark. Here's hoping they fix that ASAP. Oh, and none of these shots have been color corrected, by the way. Now let's test out the stabilization in bright daylight. Well, kind of bright, just very snowy, but it's daytime at least. When I run with all 3 cameras on my Trident selfie stick, I'm seeing stabilization equally good from shot to shot. All 3 cameras are doing a fantastic job, so good that I'd say you shouldn't even think about stabilization when choosing between these 3 because they're all going to do great. What I am noticing though is the red dot of doom is present in the One X and One R footage, whereas the Max is clear of it. However, the Max also has the worst dynamic range. As you can see, the contrast is really high, and as a result, it's losing detail in a lot of the scene. When I color correct this footage, these are looking pretty similar. Yeah, the 2 on the left still have better dynamic range, but they're all passable and they all look good for a running stabilized 360 shot. It is worth adding that the 2 cameras on the left also have HDR video. I've used it here with the One R and not the One X, and you can see by far the One R has the best dynamic range, especially around the sun. I found this feature to be a bit hit and miss. However, it's actually pretty decent when you're using the camera on a tripod. Now let's test out the slow motion. The One X and One R shoot 100 frames per second at 3K. The GoPro Max doesn't shoot slow motion, so I've had to slow down the 25 FPS to match the other 2. And despite the kinda low resolution from the Insta360 cameras, the slow motion is pretty buttery. This is really satisfying to look at, and if you're wondering what I'm doing, by the way, I'm burying bread in the backyard. It's a long story, but if you follow my Instagram stories, you probably know what's going on. Next, I wanted to test these cameras with a moving subject in mixed lighting, and what better place for a grown man to visit to play with his toys than the zoo. Luckily, Sammy the Seal also wanted to know which of these 3 cameras is best, so he agreed to be part of the test. By the way, I forgot to mention, all samples from this video are shot in auto exposure mode. As I walk through the tunnel, again the 1X and 1R look identical. Where the Max stands out and it's not good is the lights are flickering at the bottom. This is to do with the hertz of the camera, and a frequent annoyance I've had with the Max is always having to change this to suit the type of indoor lighting you're shooting, and you don't always know it's going to be a problem, and here I got it wrong. I also noticed with the Max the change of auto exposure is pretty noticeable when you're going from one lighting situation to another. Now here comes Sammy, and he's clearly visible in the 1X and 1R shots. In the Max it's really high contrast and I'm struggling to see him in the shadow areas. When he enters the bright part, the Max exposes him really well, but then when he goes back it's hard to see him again. Consistently I found the Max has produced high contrast photos and videos, which can be a blessing in some situations and a curse in others. So in these samples here, I've got to say the 1X and 1R are doing a better job in terms of dynamic range, and this is without color correction. It's better to start off with a slightly flatter image so you can color correct later than have your footage look too high contrast and too saturated straight out of the camera. But I guess it's a personal preference. Okay, so now I'm starting to see some differences between these 3 cameras. However, how well do they do at photos? Now I'm going to shoot the exact same situation using the camera settings that produce the best possible result with each camera. Say cheese, Sammy. Now all 3 of these cameras have relatively low photo resolution compared to their other competitors. However, after color correction, I was able to get all 3 images looking identical and pretty decent. Here's my 1X shot. The dynamic range is looking pretty good. The sharpness and color are decent. When I zoom into 300%, Sammy is captured in mid-air, well, mid-water, with a decent amount of clarity. With the 1R, it's the same story. I've got good colors, good contrast, and I'd be pretty happy using this photo as a social media post. With the Max, I've got to say, I was pretty surprised. You can't shoot RAW, so this is just a JPEG. So I've color corrected a really dark, high contrast JPEG and gotten the exact same results I got with the 1X and 1R shooting in RAW. So how do I rate these cameras for 360 photos in action type situations when you don't have a lot of time to change camera settings? Well, I'd say they're about even. This is a sound test. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a sound test. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a sound test. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now it's time for a voice control test. GoPro, start recording. And we're rolling. GoPro, stop recording. Start recording. Start recording. And there it goes, it's recording. Stop recording. I had to speak a bit more clearly for the 1R than I did the GoPro Max. 1X, start recording. 1X, I said start recording. Why aren't you listening? Oh, that's right. 1X doesn't have voice control. It's snowing. And already my 1X has run out of battery without even having turned it on yet. Not good, 1X. So as I've been shooting this video, I've been plugging in the 1X to the power bank every 5 seconds, whereas these two have been lasting much longer. Of these two, I've had to charge the 1R more than the GoPro Max. So if I were to take an educated guess, I'd say the GoPro Max wins for battery life, followed by the 1R, followed by the 1X. And look, I don't have the cold weather battery, so if I did, I'm sure this would last a lot longer. Now let's test the nighttime moving shots, and I am no pro ice skater, so I gave the cameras to my cousin and he skated as fast as he possibly could around this ice rink. When reviewing the footage, I found the 1X performed the worst. Not because it can't stabilize properly, it's actually doing a very decent job, but because the lenses were fogging up a bit in the cold weather, and it just doesn't seem to be handling those dark shadows of the night sky very well at all. Don't get me wrong, this footage is still usable, but I think we can probably do better. Here's the 1R, and a feature they were talking about when they released this camera is that the low light stability quality had improved. But something I didn't realize when filming this sample is that you need to tell the camera you're shooting in low light first before you take your shot to activate the really good stabilization. Here, I didn't realize. I thought I could do it in post, but you can't. So while this shot looks pretty average, it's not really representative of what this camera can do. I just messed up the shot. My bad. I'll do my best to shoot more low light samples ASAP. Now here's the GoPro Max, and whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Finally, the high contrast of the Max is working to its advantage. This footage looks great. Not only is the stabilization excellent, but the contrast is basically perfect. You can see the white of the snow and the dark of the sky in the same image, and it looks really good. Not all situations are going to be like this, and the high contrast is a hindrance in most situations, but definitely not at nighttime. In my books, the GoPro Max wins for low light video for now. There are way more things I could have talked about in this video. However, from these samples, I think I have enough info to rank them from 3 to 1. Coming in third is the One X. This is the oldest camera of the 3 by over a year. And that's both a blessing and a curse because it's old, it's the most developed of the 3, and they've added the most amount of things to it, but at the same time it's missing a lot of the things that 360 action cameras have in 2020. The One X used to be the best consumer 360 camera money could buy hands down, but now these two cameras have come into the picture and improved on the One X in various aspects. The design of the One X isn't as rugged as the other two, so it's always going to be a much bigger risk of damage when using it in action type situations. The One X is a good camera, but the only unique selling points I see over the other two are the price and the light, slim camera body. So if you want a 360 action camera and you're on a budget, then the One X will still be a really good option going into 2020 because I'm predicting the price will go down significantly by the end of the year. Coming in second is the GoPro Max, and the Max has the best design and it's the easiest to use of all three of these cameras. The touchscreen is great and it's a really user-friendly beginner 360 camera. If you're a massive fan of GoPro, then you should probably go with the Max because there's going to be a lot of familiar elements with the app and the workflow, and it also has the benefit of being able to shoot 1080p from one side as a flat 16:9 video. The mobile and desktop apps are pretty decent for reframing 360 videos, however, there is a massive limitation and that's to do with the resolution. It's really hard to export anything over 1080p. You have to bring your footage into Premiere and manually keyframe it and then export at 4K, and they just make it really hard to do that. So if you're someone that shoots a lot of 4K, then the Max is going to be a frustration. I do have 2 videos about the GoPro Max on my channel, so be sure to check them out if you're considering buying this camera. Look, you're not going to be disappointed, and as you saw in the video, there were some really impressive GoPro Max shots. I guess I just see it as having no real unique selling points over the other 2 cameras in this video other than the design. When Insta360 made the One R, they fixed a lot of the issues people were having with the One X and many other 360 cameras. Things like the screen, charging ports, wanting to use 360 cameras also as flat action cameras with higher resolution and not be limited to 360. With the One R, you can shoot up to 5.3K flat 16:9 video. That is a lot of resolution. It has a really great app and workflow, and something I'm really pleased they've added is you can now export 4K video in the mobile app to your camera roll. I see the biggest flaws of the One R right now to be the clunkiness of design. Also, the screen is good but not great. It's just a little bit small. However, I'm putting the One R in first place because it's got hundreds of features and it combines the best of both of the other cameras in this video into one. It takes all the great things we loved about the One X and makes them more action camera friendly like the GoPro Max. There are hundreds of cool video effects you can achieve with the One R, and I haven't even scratched the surface here. So that's it. Those are my rankings. I'm curious, what were your rankings? Did you see the One R as the best, or did you prefer the Max or the One X? By the way, coming by the end of this week is my video about the One R 1-inch edition. Is it really as good as they say it is, or is it all hype? Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you can be the first to find out. If you have any questions, drop them below, and Sammy and I will see you in the next video.